Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this series, we're going to be talking about the gateway tapes. I will be bringing the actual documents in for us to look at and discuss in further videos. This one's going to be an overview. Again, this is going to have my opinion in it. I'll let you know when I'm giving my opinion. So this is going to be a discussion on gateway. So let's go into the archives and look at Operation Grill Flame, which was a joint effort between the Defense Intelligence Agency, that's the DIA, and the Army. They focused on evaluating the potential for U.S. applications of psychoenergetics. And you might say, like, what are you talking about, psychoenergetics? Well, that's exploring the possibility of using psychic abilities for intelligence gathering. And like any CIA project, if you've watched my channel, you'll know this, or if you've read books about it, you'll know it. The project was renamed and went through many transmutations. There's many different names for different segments of the project. Sometimes they'll quit working on one part of it and they'll branch off into something else and change the name. So that's how it typically is with that agency. So the project in this form was originally known as Stargate. And if you know anything about that, that's a whole other fascinating subject about the UFOs, or what's now called UAPs. This part of it branched off and it was called Grill Flame. And then it was eventually handed back to the CIA. I know the Army gets involved. It's kind of interesting. And they're looking at remote viewing, precognition, and telepathy. So that's the psychoenergetics. And you might wonder, like, how many agents were involved in this? It's not publicly known how many government agencies went through this gateway program. The Monroe Institute has trained literally tens of thousands of people over the years, and they're still in business. They're still training just normal, everyday individuals, civilians, military personnel, you name it. The Monroe Institute predates the CIA's interest in it, as far as I know. So it wasn't specifically designated for military or intelligence applications, as far as I know. I believe that the Monroe Institute was focusing on exploring altered states of consciousness and personal growth, not trying to like brainwash people or anything like that. I know people really like to go all conspiracy theory. Was that the reason CIA wanted in there? Maybe. Maybe. But the Monroe Institute piqued the CIA's interest in the 70s and 80s. And I don't know if you remember the 1970s, I was around. In Search Of was a popular TV program. It was absolutely one of my favorite programs that explored the supernatural. It was totally in vogue back then. And the CIA was particularly interested in the potential military and the intelligence applications of the Institute's research on altered states of consciousness, especially their Hemi-Sync audio, guided visualizations, and their progressive relaxation protocols. So that was what they were tuned into. They were piqued by this. Like, what is this? How's it working? How's it working out? The CIA launched programs like Gondola, Wish, and the Gateway Process to explore these potential applications. It was an early CIA program related to psychic phenomena and ESP. The program was actually the precursor to the well-known Stargate project. Gondola Wish was initiated in the 70s as a response to rumors that the Soviet Union was making progress in developing their own psychic spy program. So you got to understand, like, if you go and look into my YouTube back catalog, I talk about how they found out, our government, the US government, found out that the Russians were using psychic phenomena. And we were totally fascinated by this. We were paranoid by this, and we were eager to try to counter this. So we were doing everything we can, allegedly, as a sort of defensive positioning, and then I guess an offensive positioning. You got to understand that that is the goal of that agency, is essentially a spy agency, but they were doing what was in their purview. They don't want to be left behind in the psychic arms race. The psychic arms race. So they launched their own program to investigate the potential of remote viewing and other psychic abilities for intelligence gathering. And you might say, what is remote viewing? That is literally, this is kind of complicated, but it's literally putting yourself into a meditative state that you could essentially psychically view something from where you are using your mind and getting secrets, or looking at something in the past, or looking at something in the future. So imagine what one could do if they had access to some kind of a looking glass. And we're not even going to get into Project Looking Glass, but there you go. So over the years, the program, like I said, went through many different name changes, like Grill Flame, Sunstreak, finally Stargate. I didn't know anything about Sunstreak, by the way, and I've been neck deep in this stuff. And it eventually involved dozens of remote viewers and millions of dollars in funding. So they had dozens of CIA remote viewers. They put millions of dollars in funding trying to remote view, say, things in other countries' weaponry, other countries' spies, you name it. Project Sunstreak, I looked into it just for this so I could be a little more well-rounded in talking about it. It was a part of the Stargate project, and it explored the military potential and intelligence applications of the psychic phenomena. So basically, it's all the same thing, just it'll go off into a different avenue. Like, take for instance Sunstreak. That involved the use of remote viewers to gather intelligence information using a technique called CRV, that's coordinate remote viewing. And in that, like, they're given the viewer is given numbers of geographical coordinates of a target, and then that person, the viewer, tries to describe the location and any activity that is taking place there, only using their psychic abilities. And you might have seen this if you've seen any videos on Joe McGonigal or any Skip Atwater, any of those folks. And I find that completely interesting about the remote viewing, the controlled remote viewing. They've also found out that it was successful even not using real coordinates, like using a series of numbers. Certain people have the ability, allegedly, to be able to access things that they seemingly shouldn't be able to access if you go by how we believe science is today. But we know that the science fiction of today is the science fact of tomorrow, and that's how it is. One particularly famous session in this project, let me see what it is. This was Sunstreak. A remote viewer attempted to locate the Ark of the Covenant, and that viewer described a gold and wooden chest adorned with winged figures buried underground in the Middle East. These documents, some of these here I'm talking about, and some of the ones I'll show you later in another video, were declassified in 2000 or 2003. They resurfaced here recently, maybe also because people are getting into Joe McGonigal, Skip Atwater, Robert Monroe. And it's, sparking a lot of interest in this subject. But if you ask an old hippie, a lot of them, they're going to know about this. They were open-minded, and they were, some of them, especially people in Cali and stuff, they were into stuff like this. So you might ask yourself, let's get back to what Hemi-Sync is. I'm here to hear about Hemi-Sync. Okay. Hemi-Sync is audio technology using binaural beats. And if you have Calm, that app or anything like that, you're going to find out now everybody's getting into these binaural beats. Finally, in 2025, we're talking 50, 60 years later, people are jumping on the train, understanding that binaural beats work. And here's how their system worked, the Hemi-Sync. They would use stereo headphones. They're used to deliver a different frequency to each ear. So when people ask me on these tapes, and again, I'm not the professional, I'm not the one that created this, I'm just telling you what the manuals say, that you're getting a different frequency in each ear for parts of it. So that is why you want to have headphones on. It won't really do you any good the way that they're wanting it to operate if you're just listening to it on your phone without headphones. The brain perceives the difference between these two frequencies that are going in your left ear and your right ear, or your left ear, your right ear, as a third frequency. So And I'll get into this with the documentation. Something's triggered in your brain where both your hemispheres of your brain operate together or have some kind of connection. Right? This third frequency that gets triggered and activated corresponds to specific brainwave patterns like your alpha waves, your beta waves, your theta waves, and your delta waves. So that's what's going on. And by adjusting the frequencies delivered into each ear, the Hemi-Sync can entrain the brain waves to designated desired frequencies, inducing different states of consciousness. So that's the goal, different states of consciousness. Some of the uses for Hemi-Sync could be relaxation. That's what I use it for. Meditation. That's what I use it for. Sleep. That's what I use it for. Learning enhancement. I don't really use it for that because I can learn pretty well, but anyway. And out-of-body experiences. And that is what Monroe particularly was interested in. And that's also, with the remote viewing, something that they were using it for deep concentration and then out-of-body. So yes, the CIA was interested to see if they could get their agents to go out of body to spy on other governments and, whoever they wanted. So I hope that gives you a nice little intro into the gateway tapes. I will be bringing the actual information and the facts in the next video. So please stay tuned, and I hope to be able to get the actual tapes back online soon. Thank you.